There have been a lot of polarizing views after Naoya Inoue's fantastic performance over Luis Neri. Some people, like myself, are saying that he is an all-time great who continues to further his legacy, and he's more than just a future Hall of Famer. He is one of the best fighters we've ever seen in the sport. And then there are people who say he is beating up nobodies in Japan. He needs to fight abroad. He needs to get out of his comfort zone, and he needs to challenge himself. How can this guy be compared to the greats when he's not fighting anybody and he's not doing it in America? And I personally do not agree with any of those later opinions, and I'm going to state why in this video. You guys let me know what you guys think down below about each of these views and which do you side with. Because at the end of the day, this is all people's opinions. It's a debate, and I love debating. I love when people disagree with me, as long as everybody's respectful. So the first one is that Naoya Inoue needs to get out of Japan and he needs to fight abroad. Well, Naoya Inoue has done that in his career. Not a ton, but he has fought outside of Japan. When he fought Antonio Nieves, I hope I said that name right, he fought in California. When he fought Emmanuel Rodriguez, he fought in Scotland. When he fought Jason Maloney and Michael Desmarinis, he fought in the US. So again, he has fought abroad. Now, most of the time he's fought in Japan, but the reason he's fought in Japan is because that is where he sells tickets. He is a pop star in Japan. He is a superstar of superstars. So it makes sense for him to fight there, just like it made sense for Floyd Mayweather to fight his entire career in the US, and once he became the money man, he virtually never left Las Vegas. It made sense for Anthony Joshua to fight in the UK for pretty much all of his career. When Ricky Hatton was building himself to becoming a guy who could have that big money fight with Floyd Mayweather, he did it all in the UK. The Klitschko's fought in Germany. Alexander Usyk has fought pretty much his entire career around Europe. It's the common thing in boxing. You fight where you sell tickets. Now, could Naoya Inoue sell tickets in America? Absolutely, but he's not going to sell as many tickets as he does in Japan. So again, hence why it makes sense. Hence why Stephen Fulton went to Japan when he was the defending super bantamweight champion, because Naoya Inoue was the money man, despite having not fought in the super bantamweight division yet. Some people have brought up that fighters like Manny Pacquiao sold in America, so why can't Naoya Inoue? And one of these guys is Dante's Boxing Nation, whose video I commented on stating my opinion about him fighting outside of Japan, meaning Inoue. And again, I talked about how Mayweather never left America when he was fighting, neither did Andre Ward. And at the end of the day, it's what I said earlier, two men having different opinions. I did not appreciate one of his replies to my reply, where he outright said that I was disrespectful of Terence Crawford and Devin Haney, who wasn't even in this conversation. And again, I did not appreciate that, but no beef. And I said I wasn't interested in getting into any argument. I don't know whether he understood that or whether he was just moving on. Either way, talking about how Pacquiao became not just a guy who could sell tickets in America, but one of the biggest moneymakers in boxing, and really in boxing history. Pacquiao had the benefit of fighting Oscar De La Hoya, who was on his way out big time, but nonetheless he got that opportunity to fight a man who was himself one of the biggest money men boxing had ever seen. He was the money man at the time, so Pacquiao got the rub of the green. Then he also got to fight Ricky Hatton, who was a big star in the UK, and that helped make him an international star. Naoya Inoue does not have a dance partner in the divisions he is in who has anywhere close to that kind of pull, so he's not going to get the rub of the green. Again, could he sell in America? Absolutely, but he's mostly going to sell in Japan, so that's what makes sense for him. Then there's the argument that Naoya Inoue isn't fighting anybody who's that good. Now, is his resume full of Hall of Famers who are going to go down like the Three Kings or the Big Four, whichever? No, it isn't. But does that mean his resume is garbage? No, because if that was the case, then we would have to apply that logic to most active fighters and say, well, they're not beating the guys who the greats beat in the past. And the answer is, well, the guys in the past had opponents who had achieved more than the fighters of today. And again, I'm trying to be fair here. Let me just go through a bunch of the opponents who Naoya Inoue has not just beaten, but walked through, going back to his days as a light flyweight. Ryoichi Taguchi, multiple-time light flyweight champion after Inoue beat him. Adrian Hernandez, he was a multiple-time light flyweight champion when Inoue knocked him out. Omar Narvaez, he had one defeat when he fought Naoya Inoue to the great Nonito Donaire, and aside from that, he was a long-time WBO junior bantamweight champion. Jamie McDonnell, another world champion Inoue beat. Juan Carlos Payano, again another world champion he beat. Emmanuel Rodriguez, undefeated world champion when Inoue knocked him out in 2 rounds. Nonito Donaire the first time, future Hall of Famer, a guy who has won world titles in 4 different weight divisions from flyweight to featherweight. Inoue beat him twice. And I almost forgot to mention that a lot of people say Donaire was washed up when Inoue beat him because he had 5 losses at the time. It had been a while since he lost to Guillermo Rigondeaux, having lost to Carl Frampton and Nicholas Walters. Well, both times Inoue beat him, he was a world champion, and he won those world titles off of undefeated world champions. Ryan Burnett the first time, and Nordine Albali the second time. So Donaire was not a washed-up old man who was only winning world titles off of other washed-up old men. He was beating undefeated world champions for those bouts. So he was still a formidable operator, hence why he's going to go in the Hall of Fame when he retires. Jason Maloney, a guy who would go on to become a world champion at bantamweight after Inoue beat him. Paul Butler, a guy who held the final belt Inoue didn't have at bantamweight. Then he moves up to super bantamweight. Stephen Fulton, undefeated world champion, unified champion at the time. Marlon Tapales, a guy who had just won the other 2 titles at super bantamweight. And Luis Neri, a former world champion who only had 1 defeat in this division. Again, if you were going to write that off and say, well, he ain't beating anybody who's good, Naoya Inoue has one of the most stacked resumes of this era, and of all time, he is again up there with the all-time greats. Now, I'm not saying he's better than this great or that great. I don't want to turn this into that kind of discussion. I also don't want to turn this into a video where I'm propping up Naoya Inoue's achievements by critiquing other greats of this era's achievements and saying, well, look at this opponent, look at that opponent. It's not nearly as good as it was built up to be, therefore Inoue is greater, etc. Because fairly or unfairly, that will be interpreted by a lot of people as me saying that Naoya Inoue is automatically greater than all these other greats that we are seeing in this era, whether it's Crawford or Alexander Usyk or Canelo, etc. And they all deserve to be up there. They're all greats of this era. They have earned their spots in the Hall of Fame, etc., etc. So I don't want this, again, to be misinterpreted. I know I'm kind of wishing on a star because anything can be misinterpreted, but I just don't want to give ammunition to the people who want to argue about who is overrated and who is a hype job, etc., because I'm not saying any of that. Naoya Inoue is an all-time great. He's earned that right. He has a fantastic resume, as do all those other fighters. Thirdly, the idea that he has to move up weight divisions. I don't know if people just don't follow the sport this closely or if people just repeat lines that they hear from other people. Because Naoya Inoue started his career as a light flyweight, okay? 108 pounds. He moved up past flyweight and went straight to super flyweight, 115 pounds. He moved up to bantamweight, 118 pounds, became undisputed champion there. Now he's at 122 pounds at 31 years of age, super bantamweight, and he's undisputed champion there. And he just fought a top 5 ranked opponent after unifying the division in less than a year. This guy has moved up enough weight divisions, more than enough weight divisions in my opinion, and he is perfectly fine where he is. I love the fact that he's going to defend his belts against his mandatory Sam Goodman, as he just defended them against one mandatory in Neri. And shoutouts to the guy who commented in my post-fight video of the fight, talking about how he would like to see Inoue fight Akhmadaliev. I would like to see that fight too, but, you know, Goodman is next in line, plus he's undefeated. Akhmadaliev, well, we've seen him get picked apart by Marlon Tapales, and I agree with a lot of people. On most days I would pick Akhmadaliev to win that fight, but hey, he lost, so it is what it is. But I really do look forward to seeing that fight, him and Inoue. So again, he has moved up enough weight divisions. I'm not even going to spend much time on this, but I'm just going to mention it because, I'm going through every single critique which I feel is totally unfair. The fact that he should move up to, I can't believe I'm saying this because it just sounds so unbelievably ridiculous, lightweight, and fight guys like Gervonta Tank Davis and Shakur Stevenson, fight guys who are a name, and then he'll earn the respect. Like, oh my god, this does my head in because it's so ridiculous. He just started again at 108 pounds when he was a really, really young man, and he's expected to move up to 135 pounds to get respect. I mean, come on, folks, come on. You're asking him to move up nearly 30 pounds from where he started. Now, could he move up another division to featherweight? Yes, he could. And there was somebody in the comments of one of the videos I commented on talking about Inoue's greatness, because I was seeing the disrespect that he's been receiving from some areas of the fan base. And he mentioned him moving up to featherweight to fight either Raymond Ford or Ray Vargas or Brandon Figueroa. Now, again, would I like to see Inoue move up another weight division? Absolutely. I love watching the monster fight. He is one of my favorite fighters. And as far as entertainment goes, he is one of the best in the sport. But he doesn't have to move up another weight division. When he moved up to super bantamweight last year, there were so many people, and I mean a lot of people, who were talking about how Stephen Fulton was going to show Inoue that there are levels to this game, that he can't move up another weight division and expect to take on the best fighter in the world, etc. and win. This is going to be something different that he hasn't faced before. He's going to look human, etc., etc., etc. And there were people saying other things, but I'm not going to even entertain that. And Inoue blasted Stephen Fulton out in 8 rounds like it wasn't even competitive. I mean, Fulton got hit with one clean right hand and then he went into defensive mode. So that fight was an easy, easy victory for Naoya Inoue. I mean, I was amazed watching that fight. And now suddenly, after he blasted through Stephen Fulton, the new standard is that he has to move up to lightweight. Again, this ridiculous narrative was put out last year by people like Steven Espinoza, who said, oh yes, that would be a great fight to make. I'd love to make that fight. And then you had Floyd Mayweather, who, oh god, let's not even go into what he said. My goodness, that interview was painful to listen to. And then there's the final one, which is the PED question. There are a lot of people who either are suspicious of Inoue being on PEDs because he is fighting in Japan and we don't know exactly what the commissions are doing over there, like we do in America and the UK and places like Europe. Or there are people who are flat out accusing him of being on PEDs and saying, well, that's the reason why he's not getting out of Japan, he's in his comfort zone, he's protected, etc., etc. Now, I'm going to wrap this video up because I feel it's gone on long enough. Could Naoya Inoue be on something? Yes. And I hold that standard to every single fighter. I don't rule out anybody outright using some kind of PED because I've been following combat sports since I was in my mid-teens, and I've learned over the years that many fighters are using that stuff. So again, I'm not completely going to rule out anybody using it. Naoya Inoue is no more suspicious than any other fighter. As far as the argument that he has carried his power up these divisions, again, there is no massive weight discrepancy in the lower divisions like there is in the higher ones. So in a way, it's not like he's having to put on a ton of muscle to move up these divisions. In fact, my guess is that he's probably just having to skip less meals and maybe able to eat a few more steaks than he was in the lighter divisions. If he was notably bulking up and still maintaining this incredible speed that he has, then that would make things a little bit more suspicious. But again, I don't see anything that makes me more suspicious of any other fighter. Like, Bud Crawford is a guy who's moved up several divisions where there are bigger weight discrepancies in between each one, and he's carried up his power, and it makes sense because this guy is such a precise, accurate puncher that he's able to disrupt his opponents within seconds. I mean, it's insane the timing this guy has because his fight IQ is incredibly high. Inoue is a similar guy. He uses a lot of awareness, a lot of intelligence, and he's got a very high fight IQ to be successful. So again, it makes sense. And in terms of the commissions not testing, well, I can't remember who it was to, but it was somebody in the comments of Dante's video on the fight. I said that the testing, unless you do random drug testing with VADA or another agency like USADA, which again Inoue has done in previous fights, there is this misconception that he was only on VADA testing for the Stephen Fulton fight. Not true. This is a screenshot from VADA's own website where Inoue did it in his recent Nonito Donaire fight. But when it comes down to the commissions, they decide what kind of testing they do. And it has actually been reported that the UK testing is more stringent than the commissions you get in America. There are a ton of other problems in the UK, but if you're looking at specific commission testing, you could say that the UK is better than a lot of the ones in America. More fighters get popped over in the UK, and is that because UK fighters are automatically more dirty than the US fighters, or is it because they do more testing? But that is just some food for thought. I don't see any reason to suspect Naoya Inoue any more than any other top level fighter. In my opinion, to an extent, you should be suspicious of most fighters, but again, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think down below. I just wanted to make this video because, again, I heavily disagreed with the majority of disrespect that Inoue was receiving. But if you guys agree with those points that I've been debunking in this video, drop your thoughts down below as to why. Again, I love when people disagree with me, as long as everybody keeps it respectful. More than happy to have other people's opinions, and yeah, let me know what you guys think down below about every point I brought up. And I'll be doing one on who has a better resume and who is pound for pound number one between him and Terence Crawford. I did a poll today earlier on my channel, and yeah, I'll be talking about the results and who deserves to be pound for pound number one. As I've been saying in every comment section that I put my opinion out there, there's no right or wrong answer to me. Let me know what you guys think down below about everything I've talked about in this video. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more, as always.